Welcome and thank you for attending Green Mountain Conservation Group's 22nd annual meeting. Green Mountain Conservation Group is a watershed organization committed to the conservation of shared natural resources in the Ossipee watershed through research, education, advocacy, and land conservation. The primary towns include Eaton, Effingham, Freedom, Ossipee, Madison, Sandwich, and Tamworth, as well as our downstream neighbors in Maine. Green Mountain Conservation Group is dedicated to protecting the Ossipee Aquifer, New Hampshire's largest stratified drift aquifer, supplying drinking water to millions. GMCG's mission is healthy water, healthy communities. In December of 2019, GMCG welcomed new Executive Director Matt Howe. Matt Howe comes to GMCG with over 25 years of nonprofit executive director experience and a lifelong devotion to the outdoors and environmental protection. We dedicate our 2020 annual presentation to GMCG founding executive director Blair Foltz, who concluded 22 years of leadership in December of 2019. On behalf of the land, the water, the wildlife, and the people of the Ossipee watershed, we give thanks. The tools we use to realize the mission of Healthy Waters, Healthy Communities spell out the acronym REAL: Research, Education, Advocacy, and Land Conservation. In the following presentation, you will hear from the various staff members who lead each of these important programs.
Hi, my name is Jill Emerson and I'm the Water Quality Coordinator here at Green Mountain Conservation Group. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about the research programs that GMCG ran in 2019 and where we see ourselves going in 2020. So the first program, which many of you are familiar with, is our flagship citizen science program called Rivers. Rivers kicked off its 18th season in May. And last year, I'm happy to report that we had one of the highest volunteer turnouts for the program ever. Unfortunately, this year with the COVID-19, we don't have as many of the volunteers coming back for a variety of reasons. And that's okay. We're going to still run the program. We're just going to run a truncated version of the program where we may not hit all of the sites that we have hit in previous years. Last year, our volunteers managed to collect over 2,000 data points, which is pretty remarkable when you can sit there and think about what 2,000 data points is. The program this year had also been invited to a conference hosted by the Maine DEP. We were going to talk about this Rivers program and what it means to be running a successful citizen science program. Unfortunately, again, due to COVID, that talk was canceled, but I did still record my presentation, and you can find it on GMCG's YouTube channel. It's entitled "We Can Science and So Can You," and I highly encourage if anybody wants to hear more about the Rivers program and what it is to run successful citizen science programs, you take a look at that presentation. The organization last year also participated again in the Volunteer Lake Assessment Program, or VLAP. This is put on by our friends at New Hampshire DES. The organization monitored May through August, Lake Ossipee and her bays. We are still monitoring this year as well, but again, because of COVID, the monitoring is going to look a little bit different. We're basically going to go out with more or less a skeleton crew this year, and we are only going to sample in July. Our friends at OLA will sample in September, and those are going to be the only 2 data points that we are allowed to have this year. The VLAP program altogether has about 170 lakes, and so juggling COVID guidelines and lack of interns and everything has limited each lake system to only 2 samplings per this season this year. This is a great little program, though. In normal years, I would encourage people to come out and learn about what it is to do lake monitoring. This allows us to establish baseline information so that we can see if there's issues happening in the lake year to year. Right now, the biggest change that we're seeing in the Lake Ossipee system is an increase in conductivity, which is resulting of road salting. So that is something that the state is currently keeping its eye on, and we are encouraging towns to think about using different methods of road maintenance and having low salt or no salt zone areas around the lake. So we also offer cyanobacteria monitoring services. Last year, we helped with identifying blooms on Province Lake, Danforth Bay, and in Pine Train Pond. And here you can see a couple of different examples of some of the blooms we went out and helped monitor. So when people notice a bloom, we ask them to either call us or call New Hampshire DES and take a photo of the bloom if it's safe to do so, and note the time and the location of the bloom. One of the things that we are trying to encourage people this year is, if you call our office, is to please give us the closest landmark of where you've noticed the bloom. We frequently will get people who will just say Danforth Bay without giving us a location, and it makes it a little easier if we know exactly where you saw the bloom so that we can go and collect a sample of it. So the pictures that you're seeing on your left are from Danforth Bay. This is a strain known as Deliciosperma. And so you can see here it's got nice little beads on a string sort of phenotype or look to it. This is a pretty common cyanobacteria for this area. The one on your right has a couple of different species in it. Oscillatoria is the one that looks like large pieces of grass that have segments into them, and the ones that look like smooth pieces of grass is also known as Ligbia. So there's a couple of different strains in that cyanobacteria bloom, which can happen. We've had a pretty warm spring, and it's starting to look like it's going to be a very warm summer, so I'm encouraging everybody who uses a lake or lives on a lake to look and see what's happening in their waters. If they're seeing this type of green growth, again, take a picture if it's safe to do so, and either contact Green Mountain or New Hampshire DES for further guidance. This year, we were hoping that we could launch our microplastics pilot survey, but again, due to COVID, that does not seem like that's going to get off the ground. So we've pushed this pilot survey to 2021, but one of the things that Green Mountain is going to take on is looking for microplastics in the Ossipee Lake system. Now, these are 3 photos from last year's monitoring where we were finding microplastics in some of our samples. So you can see everywhere where there's a blue arrow, a little bit of microfibers that you can see. There's some pinks and there's some blues there. We started noticing a lot of this in our samples that we were collecting for cyanobacteria, and we decided to do essentially a pilot survey to see how many pieces of microplastic we can find in a subset of the water, and we can also do this with sediment or sand on the shorelines. So we're really hopeful that will get up and off the ground once the organization's able to go back to full steam ahead, and we can use the camps and the lake communities for help on this program. That being said, none of our programs could run without the help of our volunteers. Here are just a few photographs of our volunteers. Some of these people were brand new to our program last year. Some of them have been with us for years. We thank all of them for being members of GMCG and taking their time to help us with our research projects. The only reason we are successful is because of our volunteers. And so I just can't thank them enough. I enjoy each and every one of them, and I love hearing their stories, and I love going out with them. And so again, thank you, thank you, thank you.
This is Tara Schroeder, the Education Coordinator for Green Mountain Conservation Group. Last year was a fantastic year for GMCG and its educational programs. We worked with 11 schools in New Hampshire and Maine, and a total of approximately 719 students through our many watershed education programs. We also hosted 31 public programs, 24 of which were held at the new Blue Heron House. New educational programs were also initiated last year, including the Watershed Ambassador Program, which involved a local high school student teaching environmental education to younger students, the Summer Environmental Film Series, and Nature Story and Discovery Time for youngsters. Last year was the 12th year of Get Wet, or groundwater education through water evaluation and testing, in which students learn about their well water quality. This program is also expanded to the public with 4 programs in Conway, Freedom, and Madison. It was the 9th year for the Trout in the Classroom program with New Hampshire Fish and Game, and we also expanded to work in Maine with Ossipee Valley Middle School and the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. It was the 14th year of VBAP, or the Volunteer Biological Assessment Program, with a record number of schools and students participating across the Ossipee watershed from Conway to Effingham and into Maine. In 2019, we expanded the Less Plastic initiative to include more schools, including Kingswood High School, Kennett High School, and Ossipee Valley Middle School. In the future, we hope to expand this program to younger students and incorporate microplastic studies of Lake Ossipee, as well as single-use plastic water bottles. March 2020 brought unique challenges for GMCG's programs with stay-at-home orders and school closings due to COVID-19. Staff rose to the challenge to support watershed students, families, and teachers with hands-on learning opportunities via a new YouTube channel and webpage. We continue to adapt to these new times of physical distancing, enhancing online learning opportunities, creating watershed-wide community events to bring people of all ages and our shared natural resources together through projects such as WOW, the Wonders of Water art exhibition to be held in August with partner organizations across the watershed. We're also continuing with important projects such as the Saco River Stream Crossings Assessment Project that will ultimately enhance the health of the watershed, wildlife habitat, and community infrastructure. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our many wonderful and dedicated volunteers who helped to make the school and public programs possible. Thank you as well to the many local charitable foundations and businesses listed here for their support last year. And finally, thank you to our partner organizations. One thing that is unique about GMCG as compared with other environmental organizations is our incorporation of advocacy into our mission. Using sound science and a grassroots approach, GMCG has been able to advocate for the protection of important natural resources in times when they have been threatened. In 2019, the Ossipee Aquifer Advisory Committee, or OAAC, which began in 2016 through Green Mountain Conservation Group, collaborated with Dr. Newton and Smith College for the 3rd groundwater study. The OAAC also hosted a PFAS educational workshop with guest speakers from New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services and the Toxics Action Center to address local PFAS contamination concerns. The OAAC also carried out drinking water workshops and well testing in 3 towns. Members of the OAAC also addressed a direct threat to the Ossipee Aquifer with the Pine Tree Power groundwater discharge issue and provided outreach and well water kits at Household Hazardous Waste Day.
Good afternoon. My name is Moselle Spiller, and I am the Outreach Coordinator at GMCG. In 2019, I began leading our Best Management Practices initiative and the 3rd phase of our Watershed Management Plan. BMPs are structural designs or landscaping techniques that capture storm water runoff and non-point source pollution before it enters the lake. We have partnered with commercial businesses, private landowners, and towns to implement BMPs on shorefront properties. BMPs are not only functional, but they look good too. Below is a picture at Camp Calumet where we designed a rain garden. Above is a dry well at Camp Huckins. The largest project is currently in progress at Danforth Bay Campground in Freedom. There, we are working on several BMPs. Pictured are some infiltration steps or terraces leading down a very steep slope. Steep slopes are complicated because erosion travels at a higher velocity. Here is another view of the infiltration steps at Danforth Bay Campground. This is in progress. Eventually, these will be filled with crushed septic stone. As the water flows down, it will be slowed and infiltrated by the crushed stone, reducing erosion and runoff at the bottom of the beach. We are very grateful to our partners at Danforth Bay Campground for their enthusiasm in building BMPs. It is our hope that other landowners will see these showcases and be inspired to do similar designs at their properties. Eventually, GMCG will be posting all of our completed BMPs on our website with the drawings and instructions on how more people can do these DIY projects. In addition to building BMPs with partners around Ossipee Lake, we are also working on some of our own here at GMCG's Blue Heron House. These will eventually be used as online workshops after we record video of the installation process. Here is a concept rendering or Photoshop rendering of a rain barrel to be installed at the Blue Heron House. In addition to the rain barrel, we are also working on a butterfly rain garden at the Blue Heron House. The before picture is right next to our parking lot, between the parking lot and the river. There, runoff collects from the parking lot before entering the river. This is a great opportunity for a rain garden. We have been planting pollinator species and water-loving plants to help soak up the runoff. We started work on the butterfly rain garden in early May of this year. Here you can see there was a lot of debris and leaves and sticks. There was also some garbage because this used to be a dumping area before we owned the property. Next to that, you can see we've done a lot of cleaning up, and we have some native species planted, some pollinators and butterfly attracting plants, and there's more work to be done. If you are interested in volunteering on this project, please reach out to me. And we look forward to getting this done by the end of the summer. And during this progress, I'm also documenting with photo and video, and will eventually post a tutorial online on our YouTube channel on how others can make rain garden and butterfly gardens. Here is a view of the Blue Heron House at 236 Huntress Bridge Road. As you can see from this Google image, we are right on the Ossipee River. This is a wonderful learning opportunity for visitors to understand that water knows no boundaries. This is the exact exit of the water from the entire Ossipee watershed. Water comes from Ossipee Lake into Ossipee River and crosses the border, eventually becoming the Saco. This water eventually goes to southern Maine, becoming the drinking water for millions of others. Water knows no boundaries. The Blue Heron Trail and kiosk, located at 236 Huntress Bridge Road, remain open to the public, but we do have signs that say, "Stay 6 feet apart." The Blue Heron Trail is an easy footpath that loops around our vernal pool, riparian habitat, and the beautiful riverbank of the Ossipee River. The kiosk contains information on native species, the aquifer, and the history of GMCG. After you've discovered the Blue Heron Trail and riverbank at the Blue Heron House, GMCG invites you just a couple miles down the road to the natural area, just opened in 2019. Back in 1998, a commercial garbage transfer company sought to locate a multi-town garbage transfer station at this property. This became one of GMCG's first major advocacy and education campaigns that was very successful. By engaging the public in a letter writing campaign and through education and research of documenting why this was an inappropriate place for a garbage station, as it was directly over the Aquifer and next to the Ossipee River, the garbage transfer company eventually pulled out, and soon after, through an anonymous donation, the land was gifted to GMCG. Now, almost 20 years later, we have opened a public trail as well as a kiosk, and you can find the trail location by driving south on Green Mountain Road. You turn off of Route 25, and in about 0.1 miles, you will see a staircase leading up the left side of the road. There you will find the kiosk with information about the trail. In October, we had a costume walk as it was close to Halloween, and pictured below are members of the GMCG board, and this is me, Moselle, in a costume, and we walked the trail in a ribbon cutting ceremony. And thanks to the board and volunteers, we had this kiosk and footbridge and trail built, and it's just a really wonderful story that started so long ago, and now this is open to the public. We hope you will enjoy. Part of GMCG's goal is to encourage voluntary land conservation for the protection of water resources, wildlife habitat, sustainable forestry, agriculture, and quality of life. GMCG has conserved over 2,000 acres of land in the Ossipee watershed through conservation easements or fee ownership. These lands support local agriculture, wildlife, forestry, scenic vistas, and water resources. In 2001, GMCG acquired its first fee-owned land to protect the aquifer, supplying both Freedom and Effingham. GMCG's first conservation easement came in 2002, when it protected 405 acres, including Mount Catherine and Wanalancet. Since then, it has added an average of 156 acres per year under protection through conservation easements and another 22 acres per year in fee-owned lands. GMCG has also supported other groups in the area in their efforts to conserve land. In 2019, we added the new addition to the GMCG portfolio, the Brooks Easement. Approximately 64.5 acres are situated off Route 153 in the town of Freedom. Standout features include a wetland, a thriving heron rookery, and the sacred tree shown below. More information about conservation easements and ways to permanently protect your local land can be found at GMCG's website. There you will find our policies, easement application, and commonly asked questions and options for landowners.
Hi, my name's Ellie Stormer. I'm the Education Outreach AmeriCorps member.
And I'm Sarah Goldsmith, the Water Quality Resources AmeriCorps member.
This year, I've been assisting Tara with educational programs like Trout in the Classroom and Get Wet. This has included helping to create materials and games, classroom visits, and even emergency fish filter drop-offs. I've also helped to create promotional content like the poster for this annual meeting, Earth Day, and the Wonders of the Watershed art exhibition. This spring, with the closing of schools, GMCG adopted 2 fish tanks from Sandwich Central. I looked after the juvenile trout until they could be successfully released on April 23rd, and I'm still caring for the second tank with the hopes that the students will be able to release the fish themselves in the fall.
I've been helping to run the Rivers program, and I'm also analyzing the data that's been collected over the past 15 years that the program's been running. I'm compiling this data into a report of water quality trends within the watershed, and I presented a poster of the preliminary findings in March at the New Hampshire Water and Watershed Conference in Plymouth. I've also assisted with some of the educational programs, and Ellie and I hosted the second year of the Blue Heron Bird Club, which is a citizen science initiative from Cornell University to track winter bird populations.
These past few months, we've been keeping busy working on educational videos, building trails, and the rivers testing. This summer, we're excited to continue working on content and assisting with the Saco River Streams Crossing Assessment Project.
Each year, GMCG staff select one or more members from the GMCG community who have made an exceptional contribution to the advancement of the organization's programs and to the conservation of shared resources in the Ossipee watershed. These volunteers are awarded the High Watch Community Award. This year, staff selected 3 volunteers for their extraordinary efforts in 2019. Typically, these volunteers are honored at our annual meeting. However, due to COVID, our in-person meeting back in March was canceled. GMCG would now like to congratulate Dr. Robert Newton and Karen and Victor Vitek as recipients of the High Watch Awards in 2020. Dr. Robert Newton receives this award in recognition of his leadership of the 2019 groundwater study, the 3rd groundwater study collaboration with his lab at Smith College, which has successfully tested over 200 wells across the watershed in 2009, 2016, and 2019. Karen and Victor Vitek received this award for their extensive support for and involvement in GMCG's classroom education programs, including Get Wet, Groundwater Education Program, and VBAP, Volunteer Biological Assessment Program. Participation in rivers monitoring, and their concerted advocacy work to protect fellow residents from the Pine Tree Power effluent threat. Recipients of this year's High Watch Awards have received copies of renowned author, artist, and naturalist David Carroll's books inscribed by the author. Thank you, Dr. Newton, Karen, and Vic, for all that you do for the watershed.